Thanks for joining us today. You're listening to the International Moving Podcast, your guide to moving to another country, brought to you by SDC International Shipping, LA's finest. An international move is exciting. It's a time to start over, establish a new business, maybe reestablish family ties, or retire where your budget will do more for you. Or maybe just the weather is more to your liking. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you have any questions about your international move, please give us a call at 888-779-3962. That's 888-779-3962. Hey everybody, this is Jim for SDC International Shipping. Welcome back. So the other day I was thinking about just how much stress and uncertainty must have been involved when my great-great-grandfather came over from Italy to the United States on a ship landing in Ellis Island. I believe it was early in the 20th century. And what was involved with that entire process? Now, he wasn't a rich man, but whether you have a lot of belongings or just a few belongings, or you're just crossing over the Atlantic back in that time with the shirt on your back, I imagine that it was a harrowing experience at times. And we can go back even further than that when people crossed the oceans back in the 1800s or the 1700s and before then, how people died on the journey. There was sickness and disease. And we can compare that time to the time that we're living in today. It's like night and day. People are more mobile than they've ever been before. And the idea of moving to another state or moving to another country has become more and more commonplace over the last decade. And so when we talk about moving, we're going to talk about moving your household to South Africa today. It's nowhere near the nail-biting experience that it would have been, let's say, even 50 years ago. Today, with the technology and the logistics and all of the things that we have in place, the safeguards, insurance, and all of those things that they didn't have back then, it's definitely a different experience. But speaking of South Africa, is it true that more Americans are deciding to move there? Well, the answer is yes. How difficult is it to move from, let's say, the East or the West Coast here in the United States all the way over to South Africa? Well, the answer to that question is simply that it can be relatively easy because connecting with a top-tier international moving and shipping company, that's easier than ever before. And of course, I'm going to talk about SDC International Shipping today because that's who we are and that's what we do. But right now, there's approximately 10,000 Americans living in South Africa. What's behind the trend? Well, if you want to call it a trend, there's several reasons why people choose to move to South Africa. Here are some of the top reasons. First is the natural beauty. So South Africa is known to have breathtaking landscapes, stunning beaches, mountains, and wildlife reserves. Next is the climate. South Africa enjoys a warm and sunny climate for most of the year, making it an ideal destination for people who enjoy doing things like outdoor activities and people looking for more of a relaxed lifestyle. The culture is diverse there. South Africa is a diverse country, and there's 11 official languages spoken there, and there's a variety of different cultural traditions and cuisines. There's the cost of living. The cost of living in South Africa is generally lower than in many of the developed countries around the world, and that can make it an attractive destination for people looking to live on a lower budget. There's a lot of business opportunities there. The economy is growing. Education is top-notch in South Africa. They have a well-developed education system. There are several world-class universities there. Tourism, adventure tourism, things like hiking, surfing, wildlife, all of that's available there. The people in general in South Africa are known to be friendly and very welcoming. And that makes it easier for, let's say, an expat to adjust to life in a new country if they're moving there. And just like any country, South Africa, of course, has some challenges. It has some crime, some social inequalities and things like that. So, yeah, no matter where you're going to, you want to be aware of the pros and the cons. When it comes to expats moving there, there are some top destinations. I think the first would be, you'd have to say, is Cape Town. Cape Town is considered one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It has stunning beaches along with mountains and vineyards, and it also has a diverse I guess you would call it a cosmopolitan type of population, because you have a thriving art community and a culture scene there. And when you compare it with other major cities, it does have a relatively lower cost of living. So many expats are drawn to Cape Town because it has that outdoor lifestyle and a relaxed atmosphere. Next is Johannesburg, then there's Durban, Pretoria, and Port Elizabeth. Port Elizabeth is also a smaller coastal city. It's known for beautiful beaches. It has a laid-back lifestyle, fairly low cost of living, and a very strong sense of community there. They also have good schools and universities, and they have a growing tech industry in Port Elizabeth. So a lot of people aren't aware of that. But ultimately, the best city for an expat will depend on their personal preferences, job opportunities, and whatever their lifestyle needs happen to be. And it's important, no matter where you're moving, to do your research and to take some time to visit the cities before deciding on where you're going to ultimately land, where you're going to move to. Now, one of the key components in the entire process is choosing the right international shipping company, because that makes or breaks the entire experience. So there's things that you want to know to look for, whether you choose SDC International Shipping, which of course we recommend, but regardless whether you choose us or another company, there's things that you want to look for in a top-tier door-to-door international moving company. So let's talk about that. First, you want to look for a company that has the expertise and the experience to make the move happen. Now, we might say this is obvious, but the company that you work for should have enough experience and a record of moving people from where you are to the location that you're going to. In this case, we're talking about from the United States to South Africa. Because if you're not working with a company that's truly knowledgeable and experienced, then the ultimate result can be rather unpleasant, if not outright negative. SDC International Shipping, for example, has been moving household goods and personal effects to South Africa for their clients for over 20 years. Now, within the company itself, you want to have a dedicated support team that will work with you from the start to the finish. And that means you want people there who are going to dot the I's and cross the T's, and they'll be responsive to whatever inquiry you have. So in other words, if you want to pick up the phone and ask about something maybe that you forgot to mention, well, what about this, or how does this work, that you'll have a go-to person that you're connected to in that process that you'll be able to talk to and connect with throughout the entire process from start all the way to finish. And when you work with people like this, it should be reflected in the online reviews. You want to work with a company that at least has a 4+ star rating. Of course, things can go wrong, but you don't want to deal with a company that, if you go online, you can see a lot of the reviews aren't really reviews. They're not with reputable review services like a Trustpilot or Yelp or someplace like that. But yeah, that's very important to have. Now, in order to get an accurate quote, and this is where things begin, and this is where the breakdown happens for a lot of people, there needs to be a visual survey. There needs to be a question and answer meeting when you actually connect with the shipper, getting all the critical information to them that they need. It's important, no matter what international company, moving company you're talking about, that they understand both the volume of items that are being shipped as well as any important considerations to make. For example, you may have a certain type of antique fine china or a special type of chandelier, something that's extremely fragile. To do this, a virtual or in-person survey or inspection should be conducted by an experienced shipper and estimator. And this is a critical step to ensure that the quotation is actually based upon what you have, not just a general, well, we have 2 bedrooms and some stuff in the garage or something like that. So those are some of the things that you want to watch out for. You want to make sure that you're working with a genuine international moving company, because unfortunately there are brokers out there that pose as moving companies, and they may gain your trust and get the booking, and then they wind up hiring third parties at the lowest possible cost to them. And unfortunately, you get what you pay for. So avoid the broker posing as a true international moving company. It does happen. It's critical that you're talking with a genuine international moving and shipping company, and that the people that you're talking to are the people who are going to be involved in the moving process, not just subcontracting it out to someone else. There's also the bait and switch, the low ball. And this is true in the shipping industry as it is in other industries where you get this very low quote, but they don't know all of the items that you have. And then ultimately the price begins to add up as they discover, well, you have this item and then another item requires special packing or additional insurance or all of the other variables that aren't taken into consideration. They just throw out a number. And then when they become aware of what's involved in the move itself, that number goes up. So next is upfront deposits. Be careful of that. Any company that requires an upfront deposit. Now, there's nothing wrong with a credit card authorization for security. That's fine. But actual cash upfront or an advance of some kind, I would say that a reputable international shipping company does not require upfront deposits, and that they won't charge anything upfront for at least 99% of their jobs. I will leave a 1% in there for something extremely unusual, but I would say that I would stay away from anybody requesting any type of upfront deposit. Next are the online reviews. When it comes to reviews, you may want to do a little bit of digging. Anybody can have a graphic or a screenshot on their website or an advertisement that says that we have 5-star reviews, but you want to go on a site like a Trustpilot or a Yelp or something like that and read real reviews from real people. No, there's no such thing as a perfect company, but if you see certain things coming up again and again and again, and this is true of companies that are really brokers posing as international movers. If you do some digging, then you'll find when you go to real sites where real people are leaving real reviews that the people are very unhappy with their overall experience because they didn't realize that they were going with a company that just turned out to be a broker. The next thing is the comprehensive quote. This is really common sense, but it's interesting because I think the fact that people have so much going on in their minds when they're preparing for an international move and trying to get all of these pieces together, that they don't realize that how could someone really give you a solid estimate unless it was a comprehensive quote based on the actual items that they've set their eyes on, whether in person or through an app or a Zoom call or something like that. How can they really give you a realistic estimate without knowing exactly what it is that you have, exactly which items are going to require maybe a little bit of a different approach in the move or extra safety or maybe even additional insurance just in case? Unless you do that, then you're just basically getting one of those rough estimates that will end up costing you even more than you probably would have gotten if you had just gone with the comprehensive quote to begin with. So the SDC shipping process starts with, for example, the visual survey, and that way we can get to know each other better, understand what your needs are, what your inventory is. Sometimes if a visual survey isn't possible, you can take photos and send them along, but for most shipments of household goods from door to door, the visual survey is an important part of the process. Then next you need a professional quote based on that. If everything looks good in those two, then you will get an order of service. And this is an actionable booking document that initiates the whole shipping process. For the order of shipping, that document will clearly spell out not only the price, but also all of the details, what's included and what isn't. And with SDC, for example, as with any experienced shipping company, we have internal support. We have a whole logistics team that gets involved. Once your job is booked, an internal support expert for South Africa is assigned to that. And that specialist will provide you with constant communication and guidance and request the proper documents and paperwork that might be required from you. And that person will stay with you from start to finish. It's not like with some other companies where you talk to a different person every time, or the other people have to get back to you because they don't have the information. All of those should be red flags. Now, the packing, the wrapping, the protecting, the pickup, all of that will be professionally done. If you want to pack certain things yourself, you're welcome to do that, but SDC does provide all of that for you. All of these services are available. Sometimes for a larger, more complex job, it's better to have a professional packer. And other times, you can do the wrapping and protecting yourself if you feel comfortable doing that. I think the litmus test has always been, if you shake a box and you feel everything moving on the inside, it's not wrapped, it's not protected properly. But next from there is the actual shipping process. Your household inventory is actually shipped, and from there it goes through customs. And unless you otherwise request it, for example, we handle the clearance of customs at your destination port of entry. But long before this point, SDC International will have taken care of all of the necessary paperwork, so there's no surprises when you get there. And that way, clearing customs at the destination port, it should be very smooth. And then next, of course, you have the final delivery, whether some items are going to be delivered immediately or others are going to be moved to a storage facility. All of that's taken care of. Now, if you're going to South Africa, what can't you ship? What cannot be packed among your household goods? Now, South Africa is a little bit strict when it comes to customs, and attempting to ship a prohibited item into the country can derail your plans, or even worse. So keep in mind that some items are banned outright, of course, illegal drugs, for example, while others may be considered restricted. In other words, they require approval, pre-approval for import. So we can look at items that are restricted and prohibited, things such as firearms, ammunition, and explosives of any kinds, pornographic materials, perishable goods such as foods and plants, hazardous materials, anything that comes into that chemical, flammable liquids, and batteries category, animal products such as ivory, fur, and leather from certain endangered species, counterfeit goods, pirated materials, cultural artifacts, and antiquities. And, again, it's important to note that there may be additional restrictions or requirements for shipping certain items, such as electronics or vehicles. So it's recommended that you consult, if you're going to work with us, your SDC International Shipping Relocation Specialist right up front to ensure that you're complying with all of the regulations and requirements when shipping your belongings from the United States to South Africa. There's also a customs guide that you can look up online, Customs Guide for South Africa, and it goes into more details there. As far as packing your household and protecting all of your goods, there are standard services, there are special enhanced protection services if you have delicate or specialty items. We handle both of those. There's the packing of the boxes. There's options there when it comes to packing the boxes. You could have SDC, for example, professionally pack everything from start to finish. Or alternatively, you may decide to self-pack everything. Or maybe you have a little bit of both. In other words, there's certain items that you don't feel confident that you can wrap in such a way that they're protected and they'll get there in one piece. And there's other items that you may feel comfortable doing yourself. So, you could have it done a little bit of each. For example, maybe you have framed artwork and you want SDC to pack that for you. And we have a lot of experience moving framed artwork, even whole museums. We do have a white glove service. And if you want to use that, there's a whole team of expert packers, team of unpackers, and they will happily provide white glove service. Because when you think about it, all of the things that go into the move possibly, some people in their home, they have art, they have pianos and billiard tables, they have sculptures, and these are things that they want to arrive definitely in one piece. Now, there are options when it comes to shipping your household goods to South Africa. You can look at doing it by ocean or by air. By air, of course, is faster, but that's more expensive. By ocean is more economical. And we have experience with both. We're expert in both shipping by air and shipping by way of ocean. And a lot of times a combination of both is utilized. Certain things you want to get there immediately. Other things, it's not a big deal if they don't get there at the exact same time or immediately. You can ship your car to South Africa. It is possible to bring your car with you when moving, but there are certain regulations and requirements that you need to follow in order to import your car into the country. Once your car does arrive, then it would need to go through a customs clearance process and be inspected by the South Africa Bureau of Standards to ensure that it meets the necessary safety and environmental standards. So it's also worth noting that South Africa has strict emission standards, and certain types of vehicles may not be allowed or imported into the country because of that. Now, it is a right-hand driving side of the road, and South Africa is just one of those countries that's strict on the issue. Some countries may allow you to own and register and drive a left-handed drive or right-handed drive vehicle, regardless of the country's standard, but South Africa isn't one of those countries. So, all right, let's see. What else? Importing a motorcycle, that's another thing that you can do. But of course, you are going to have to take care of the import permit that you'll get from the South Africa Bureau of Standards before you're able to ship the motorcycle. And these are all things that you can talk about with your shipping specialist. That's why it's so important to have eyes on everything that it is that you want to move. Now, pet relocations, absolutely. You can have pets taken with you when you're moving to South Africa. There are some regulations and requirements you must comply with in order to import your pet into South Africa. All of the pets that come into the country have to have what's called a valid import permit, and that can be obtained from the Department of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries, also known as DAF. Your pet must be vaccinated against rabies and have a valid health certificate issued by a licensed veterinarian. And there's some specific requirements for certain types of pets, such as cats and dogs. For example, dogs must be microchipped and have a negative blood test for rabies within 30 days of travel. Cats must be microchipped and have a negative result for feline leukemia, which is a virus, things of that nature. Again, if you have pets, you can get more information on that. There's maritime insurance. SDC offers two types: total loss and full coverage insurance options, which cover your possessions from door to door. You can get details on that. Healthcare in South Africa, what's that like? Well, here are the options. Expats relocating to South Africa can obtain health insurance, and there's several options available, including international health insurance plans that provide coverage for medical treatment in both South Africa and abroad, as well as local health insurance plans that provide coverage only in South Africa. International health insurance plans typically offer comprehensive coverage for medical treatment, including things like hospitalization, doctor visits, and prescription drugs. And they may also provide coverage for emergency medical evacuation, which can be important for expats who may need to be transported to a different country, example, for medical treatment. There are local health insurance plans in South Africa that provide coverage for medical treatment within the country, and they may have lower premiums than an international plan will. However, there might be limitations on certain coverages and for certain types of treatments or procedures that may require you to use a specific network of healthcare providers. So again, healthcare is one of those things that if you're in poor health or you have a lot of challenges in that area, you already know up front that there's a lot of things that you have to look into before pulling the trigger on a move like this, because it's important to you specifically and it's important to you immediately. But even if you're in fantastic health today, of course, it makes sense to be aware of what are the options, how do they work, how much will they cost. So that's information that you have to do on a per person basis and decide what it is that's best for you. Now, if you're bringing over, let's say, computers or laptops or things of that nature, then as far as the electrical standard in South Africa, your appliance, like most computers, printers, chargers, they're already what's called dual standard ready. So you can, the 20 to 60 gigahertz, if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. I'm just saying that it's not like you're going to have to buy a new computer when you go there because the electrical plugs are not standard or the power supplies are not are different from they are in the United States. That used to be true in the past. I know people that moved over to the UK, for example, and nothing worked. Nothing worked properly because it was just a different standard there. But today, most devices are dual standard ready, and but if not, there are still power converters known as step-downs that you can use so that your device will work properly and you can plug it in and charge it properly over there. So to conclude today's episode, I have to say that there are compelling reasons I can see why some American expats choose to relocate to South Africa. For its stunning beauty and diverse culture to an affordable cost of living and friendly locals there, South Africa does offer a unique experience that you won't really find in a whole lot of places. Or maybe you're just interested in starting a business, or you're going to go to school there, pursue a new career path, or you're just an adventurous type. South Africa does have a lot of pluses. So if you have any questions or you're ready to plan your move, go ahead and give us a call. We'd love to connect with you and answer whatever types of questions you may have. All right, I think that's about all for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next podcast episode.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for listening. Whether you're relocating within the country or moving to the other side of the world, we're here to help from start to finish. Connect with us today at 888-779-3962. That's 888-779-3962.